Empires are not born in a single battle, they rise quietly, city by city. In the early 14th century, a small frontier state stood at the edge of history. One city would change everything. Its name was Bursa, and its fall marked the true beginning of the Ottoman Empire. By the early 1300s, the world was in transition. Anatolia, the land we now call Turkey, was a fractured landscape. The great Seljuk Sultanate, which had dominated the region for centuries, had collapsed. Its power was gone, leaving a vacuum. At the same time, the once mighty Byzantine Empire was fading, its authority crumbling along its eastern frontiers. In this chaotic environment, small Turkish principalities, known as beyliks, competed fiercely for land, resources, and sheer survival. They were warrior states, constantly fighting, forging alliances, and trying to carve out a future for themselves. Among these countless beyliks was one that seemed no different from the rest, the Ottoman Beylik. Led by its founder, Osman I, it was a small state on the frontier, bordering the weakened Byzantine lands. At this stage, it's crucial to understand that the Ottomans were not yet an empire. They were a frontier force, a Ghazi state, driven by a warrior ethos and a relentless ambition. Their fighters were disciplined, their leadership was shrewd, and they were constantly expanding, pushing deeper into Byzantine territory. But they lacked the one thing that would transform them from a provincial power into a world-changing dynasty, a true strategic capital. And that's where Bursa comes in. Bursa was no ordinary city. In the early 14th century, it was one of the most important urban centers in the region. Its strategic location was its greatest asset. Nestled at the foot of a mountain and situated directly on the legendary Silk Road, Bursa was a vital hub of commerce. It controlled the trade routes that linked the heart of Anatolia with the Balkans and the bustling ports of the eastern Mediterranean. Imagine the goods flowing through its gates, silks from the east, spices from distant lands, and textiles coveted across the known world. This constant flow of trade made Bursa incredibly wealthy, but it was more than just a rich prize. It was heavily fortified, a symbol of Byzantine strength and resilience. For the ambitious Ottomans, capturing Bursa represented far more than just another conquest. It was about legitimacy. Taking a city of this stature would send a clear message to all the other beyliks and to the world. The Ottomans were no longer just raiders on the frontier. They were a serious power, capable of capturing and holding one of the great jewels of Anatolia. It was a stepping stone from a principality to a state. So how did they do it? The siege of Bursa wasn't a dramatic, swift assault with catapults and chaos. Instead, the Ottomans chose a different path: patience. The siege began under Osman I, and it was a masterpiece of strategic warfare. Rather than wasting his men on a direct attack against the city's formidable walls, Osman decided to strangle it. He built a ring of smaller forts and watchtowers in the surrounding hills and countryside. One by one, the smaller fortresses and towns that supported Bursa were captured. This strategy effectively cut off the city's supply lines. No food could get in, no trade could get out. The city was slowly and methodically isolated from the outside world. This wasn't a reckless attack. It was a calculated, long-term plan to wear the city down. The siege lasted for years, a testament to Ottoman persistence. After Osman fell ill, the campaign was continued by his son and successor, Orhan. The pressure was relentless. The city was being starved into submission, its hope of rescue from the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople fading with each passing season. Finally, in the year 1326, after years of isolation and hardship, Bursa surrendered. The city's defenders, seeing no hope of relief, negotiated a peaceful handover. There was no sack, no mass destruction that often accompanied medieval conquests. According to tradition, Osman I, the founder of the dynasty, lived just long enough to hear the news of the victory before he passed away. It was a bittersweet moment. The victory that he had so long desired passed to his son Orhan Ghazi, who entered the city not as a conqueror bent on revenge, but as its new ruler. The transition was surprisingly peaceful. The city's infrastructure was preserved, its people were largely left unharmed, and a new era began. Orhan, honoring his father's final wish, had Osman's body brought to Bursa and buried there, forever cementing the city's importance in the heart of the new Ottoman state. With the conquest complete, Bursa was transformed. It became the first major capital of the emerging Ottoman state. This was a critical step. For the first time, the Ottomans had a permanent administrative center. It was here in Bursa that the foundations of the future empire were laid. Orhan and his successors began to establish a formal government. They organized a system of taxation to fund their growing ambitions and minted their own silver coins, a powerful symbol of sovereignty. The city itself flourished under their rule. Mosques, public baths, and vibrant markets were built, transforming the urban landscape from a Byzantine Christian stronghold into a thriving Islamic center of commerce and governance. This was more than just a military occupation. It was the creation of a capital. Power was no longer temporary, based on a mobile army camp. It was now rooted in a city with institutions, laws, and a vision for the future. Bursa became the crucible where a nomadic warrior band began to forge itself into a sophisticated, organized state. Control of Bursa didn't just bring legitimacy, it brought immense wealth. With the city firmly in their hands, the Ottomans now controlled one of the most lucrative sections of the Silk Road. The taxes and tariffs on the silk, spices, textiles, and other goods that flowed through Bursa's markets filled the state's treasury. This new, reliable stream of income was a game-changer. It funded the creation of a professional standing army, including the beginnings of the famous Janissary Corps. It paid for further expansion campaigns into the Balkans and Anatolia, and it allowed for the building of state institutions like schools and hospitals, which helped solidify Ottoman rule. With the wealth of Bursa, the Ottomans were no longer just frontier raiders living off spoils. They were rulers, building an empire on a solid economic foundation. The conquest of Bursa was a definitive turning point in history. It demonstrated to the world that the Ottomans were a force to be reckoned with. It proved that they could do more than just win skirmishes in the countryside. They could capture major, fortified cities. More importantly, it showed they could govern them effectively. They could rule over diverse populations of Christians and Muslims, and they could build the institutions necessary to sustain long-term power. From Bursa, the Ottoman state began its relentless expansion westward. The city served as the capital and the engine of their growth for several decades. It was from here that they first crossed into Europe, establishing a foothold in the Balkans. Within a century of capturing Bursa, the Ottomans would be standing at the gates of Constantinople, ready to claim the ultimate prize. The strategies, the wealth, and the statecraft they developed in Bursa were what made all of their future successes possible. In the end, the fall of Bursa did not echo with the sound of collapse. It echoed with beginnings. It wasn't the end of a Byzantine city. It was the birth of an Ottoman capital. From this single city on the Silk Road, a provincial beylik began its transformation into a world empire, a march into history that would reshape the map for the next 600 years. Thank you for watching. If you found this piece of history fascinating, do not forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the empires that shaped our world. See you next time.